right, it is 3 p.m., so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And could you start recording, please? Great. I'm going to mess around with this mic, so if you guys can't hear me, someone raise their hand. Perfect, there we go. So we'll start with the agenda with a status update from BMO, who's our current lender. I want to let you guys know that I did have a meeting with them last week. They are aware of the transition in leadership. They expressed the interest to continue working with us. They are looking forward to a plan for us to get to a point where we are not losing so much money. And they are thankful that the board continues to make the loan a top priority. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we did speak to them, and they are happy to continue working with us. So with that, the main reason for today's meeting was to move forward with the interview and potential appointment with an interim CEO. We have identified a candidate, Kelly Morgan, who's sitting right over here to my right. There is a board packet that was left out. I believe there's some printed copies that include a copy of Kelly's resume for those that are interested, and I believe Denise has it online as well, so everyone has access to it. So I wanted to start the meeting by having an open public kind of interview, meet and greet with Kelly, so that we can be as transparent as possible with everyone, and you guys could have a chance before we make the vote to appoint or not appoint Kelly, the chance to make any public comment. So after we finish this session of some questions and answers, you guys will have that opportunity. That's
we're having a public comment section before the board gets to talk about it. Is that
no? My intention is that the board interview will be that conversation with Kelly to go have a public interview with him, public conversation, to go back and forth. It was my intention that the public could comment before we make a vote, so that any questions, concerns can be raised and brought to us before we make that vote.
And we'll limit public comment to the topic on hand.
Correct. And we will limit, thank you, Megan. We will limit the public comment to this specific topic. And then as usual, you'll have 3 minutes. I think the best way to start would be for Kelly to give us a couple minutes of telling us about you. Tell us everything we should know. Yeah. We'll try to yes, please. We'll try to make it less weird than it is with an interview in front of 50 or 60 people.
This is a first, but that's So I'm Kelly Morgan. For you that don't know me, I was actually born in Myrtle Point and grew up in Coquille. For all of you that are Beaver fans, I went to Oregon State and I got a bachelor's degree, and then I got a master's degree at the University of Iowa. I actually started my career in 1981. I actually worked for a couple of investor-owned hospitals before getting into the not-for-profit world. Over the last 16 years, I've been at Mercy Roseburg, and that's a 174-bed hospital as the CEO. Prior to there, I was the CEO at Sarahview District Hospital, which is in Porterville, California. We actually had 2 district hospitals, one in Lindsay and one in Porterville. And prior to that, I was the CEO at Mercy Merced, which is in Central California. So kind of by way of background, like I said, I grew up in Oregon. My wife and I moved back here about 20 years ago. I would say, Simon, that over my career, I've done 3 different turnarounds. That's kind of my specialty, if you will. So that's been the real focus. From my perspective, when it's all said and done, obviously it's about our patients and it's about access. And part of, I would say, my success has been is that when it comes down to it, we've got to have a absolutely fantastic relationship with the medical staff. Whether people want to admit it or not, the doctors really drive the train in regards to volume of how we're going to take care of our patients. I think we have to listen to what the community has to say, but also really be engaged with our employees, so we know what are the key factors. So that's kind of a, a 2-minute introduction, happy to answer, the questions. If there's a question that I don't answer fully or you need some more information, just feel free to ask and I'll do the best I can.
Thank you. So I'm going to try to keep this as non-awkward interview as possible. And I do have some prepared questions from some input. And then as we move along, if any of the board has any comments that they want to bring in, we'll loop those in. So one of the questions I have is, at Mercy, you led dynamic improvements in the cash reserves, the debt reduction and profitability. Our situation, as you know, is a little different. We are in technical default on a $47 million loan. And while we're making our payments, we've fallen short of the covenant compliance. So I'm curious, what are the first 2 or 3 steps you would take to help address the lender in this situation?
Yeah, so I have looked at some of the documents. Obviously, I don't, have access to everything right now, Simon. But I think the key part is we got to have an open dialogue with the Bank of Montreal. Obviously, the first step is to have a engagement with them and find out what particular do we need to meet to try to meet those particular covenants. I'd also want to know what type of documents have we sent to them already? What have we promised, and what are their expectations? And if we're falling short of that, what are we going to have to do as a team and as a board and as a medical staff to make sure that we meet them? Looking at your financial statements, I would say it's fairly alarming. Looking at the year that you just ended, there's a $23 million loss that compared to a $7 million loss before. I'm sure that has some concern from the bank. Provided that the bank is willing to work with us, obviously we'd come up with the game plan. I would also suggest that we have a plan B and look at alternative lenders if indeed that is not successful. I'm not privy to the particular lenders here in Coos Bay or different entities, but I think we have to be as comprehensive as possible to come up with a secondary funding mechanism if indeed that we've got to go in a different direction from the Bank of Montreal.
I go on to my awkward interview questions. Anything from the board? I do have a few more, but I'll let anyone jump in if they have any questions.
Kelly, I'd looked at your CV and you were part of our interview process 6 or 7 years ago. So I'm just going to get to it. Bottom line is, yeah, thank you. So it's an impressive CV. I guess I'm most interested in what you've done in the last 2 years since you've been out of full-time CEO work.
Yeah, so I did retire in May of 23 after doing this for 42 years. So the last couple of years, I have sat on the Vitality board as a consultant, working with them in regards to strategy as well as operational issues. So I usually meet with them on a quarterly basis. As you're probably aware, Vitality does have the contract here. I've known those folks for, probably 25 years. It's a very well-run organization. So I've been pretty much keeping up to date with those folks. And that's been my main focus from a healthcare standpoint.
I guess my sub-question is, do you have a CEO consulting turnaround company, or you are a free agent?
I'm a free agent. It's me. I have reached out to some of my colleagues that I've worked over the last couple of years. So we're putting together a team that we believe that has enough experience, take a look at the particular issues here and put together a game plan that we'll look forward to making it successful.
And since you retired basically within 6 months or so of the end of COVID, was that pre-planned? Was that planned because you kind of knew the other shoe would drop with the financial situation and the not-for-profit hospital situation?
No, we're probably, 2 years out from COVID. So there wasn't anything pre-planned. It was more of, spending more time with my wife and our grandkids over in Roseburg. And I think what we've seen, at least when I was over at Roseburg, we didn't see a significant drop off in financial performance. I think our whole perspective was, let's make sure we stay disciplined in regards to our expenses, as well as, trying to generate some volume. So my sense is, we didn't see a significant downturn, post-COVID over in Roseburg at all.
And a follow-up to that, at that time, Mercy had been under the CHI
Common Spirit.
Common Spirit?
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
was, so if you go back in time, in the 90s, Mercy Roseburg was part of Catholic Health Corporation, and then Catholic Health Corporation merged with two other Catholic systems to form Catholic Health Initiative. So I believe that was in 97. So we were under the auspices of CHI, and then about 4 years ago, CHI merged with Dignity, and that's what formed Common Spirit.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I'll jump into one of my other canned questions here. We've already talked about the technical default on the loan. As interim CEO, how would you approach the first 60 to 90 days of this crisis is what it is?
Yeah, I think the first 60 to 90 days is the most crucial on this assignment. So here's kind of my perspective. I think I mentioned to you, I've done this in Merced, Porterville, and in Roseburg. And I think the key is make sure you get enough information from all the different constituencies. That's spending time with staff, spending time with all of you, spending time with key medical staff leadership, spend some time with advanced health, the IPA, North Bend Clinic, Bay Clinic, community leaders, so I have a clear understanding of what the particular issues are. I'm also a big advocate of having enough data so we can make decisions. When you take a look at your financial situation, you take a look at your market share, there's going to be 2 or 3 themes that come out that are going to be the priority. I think it's pretty clear to me, and hopefully everybody has some understanding of this, but I'm going to keep focusing on this financial crisis. The $23 million loss that the hospital experienced at the end of June, if you go back from a broad 10,000 foot level, the revenue stream, net revenue, actually dropped $4.8 million. Your salaries and wages went up $10.5 million. Your purchase services went up $7.5 million. On a positive, your contract labor went down close to $3 million. So when I look at that, it says, why do we have an expense problem? Perhaps. Do we have a revenue problem? Perhaps. But I also would say that there's a volume issue. And so when I kind of step back and take a look at it, and again, this is pretty typical, and I don't want to simplify it, but in a way I try to keep it as simple as possible, because if you're going to generate revenue for the hospital, it only comes in 2 different ways. 1 is volume, 2 is rates. You're only going to get volume if you have a fantastic relationship with the medical staff. Medical staff, which is the docs and the PAs and the nurse practitioners, they are the only ones that can generate orders for volume. Looking at your out migrations, about 32%, 68% market shares, pretty good, but that incremental volume is going to make a difference on an incremental revenue basis. When you look at also in regards to rates, it's not just getting paid correctly, but going back and taking a look at your whole revenue cycle. I know you're outsourcing right now. Are they doing a great job? Don't have enough information, but you've got to take a look at your charge description master. What your denials look like. How about your observation days? Because a lot of time, small accounts don't get worked sufficiently, but there's probably a possibility to generate some additional revenue. Expense structure, same thing. Obviously, salary, wages, and benefits is the number 1 issue. So you've got to take a look at that to make sure you're as efficient and efficient and productive as you possibly can. Whether it's purchase services, whether it's other expenses. Again, there's a significant increase in those other items, but I just don't have enough information to take a look at that. Generally speaking, we're going to need to come up with a growth strategy of how to generate volume. I will say the second one usually is going to focus, I will call it human resources. And again, from a medical staff standpoint, do we have the right complement of doctors? If not, how are we going to recruit more doctors? But probably just as importantly, how are we going to retain the people that are here? Likewise with the staff. Recruiting staff and retention is extremely difficult. If you don't have the staff to take care of the patients, it's really kind of for naught, because we can't provide the access that we need or as well as quality. And please don't underestimate, quality and access is still going to drive everything that we do here. I had spent 5 minutes with Kyle and we're walking upstairs, and we got into this brief discussion about physical plant. And my perspective is that the physical plant's important, but it's not as important as service from the staff. So we will come up with a particular strategy and focus on that once we've had a little bit of time to really assess exactly of what's transpiring here.
I'm a little bit of a process guy, and I'm still a little shell-shocked with how much has happened in a week.
Mm-hmm.
To that point, here you are within 5 days of the sudden exit of our prior CEO with a job interview. And my real question is not to question your integrity, but to say, what relationships, either personal or professional, do you have with board members, IPA leadership,
Sure.
clinic leadership? I mean, it's just, you're in our region. It would not be uncommon to have relationships.
Yeah, actually, with the board is the only person I've had any dealings with is when I was chairman of the Southern Oregon Workforce Investment Board, and Kyle, was our executive director, and originally I think he was the assistant director. That's the only person that I've been in contact with at all, over the number of years. From an IPA standpoint and from a CCO standpoint, we have a different CCO that was over in Roseburg, Umpqua Health. Mercy and the IPA, we actually each had a 50% equity stake in that, and I did chair that board for a number of years. I've had professional relationships. I've had some discussions with Jeff over at Coquille and Jenny down at Gold Beach, but nothing from a standpoint that we had any type of business dealings whatsoever.
I will add that where I met Kelly was throughout this process, to the rest of the board, for you guys to know, throughout this process, it was my responsibility, I felt, to be well educated, was to reach out to local leaders and people right outside the area to understand. And that's actually where I first met Kelly, I don't know, a few months ago, where I learned about his experience, his take on the healthcare system, and his take on a hospital of our size. And so hearing what he had, he was someone that I was happy to reach out to right away, because I felt that in a time of transition, we needed that experience ready to go. And we didn't need another, out of town interim that was going to come in, that was going to be really a long process. So that's to give everyone that understanding. That's where I've met Kelly through this process. And yeah. Any other questions from the board? I have another here, but I'll let everyone else have a chance to talk. All right, Kelly, I've got this big one here. Given your background in Oregon healthcare and your prior involvement with organizations like the Oregon Health Public Policy Board and Oregon Hospital Association, how do you see yourself in advocating for Barea Hospital at a state level? What specific relationships, policy insight, or strategies could you bring to help us secure funding, regulatory support, or greater visibility within the state healthcare priorities?
Advocacy, I believe, is going to be pretty crucial in this. I've been on the Oregon Hospital Association board for a number of years. I've chaired a lot of different economic development groups, with the counties and, working with the cities. But how I would answer that, Simon, is that I think the key part of this is what's our relationship with our local legislators. They're going to have to be on board with us. We're going to have to make sure we put together a very comprehensive, clear expectation of what we need. I also know that, been on a committee or two, with the governor's office, that if we're going to be successful, the leadership of the House and the Senate are going to have to be on board with us. So that's going to be, I think, pretty important as we build our coalition here. Again, we're working with you folks, I'm sure working with the county, working with the city, that we're very clear on the economic impact that this hospital has on the community, as well as for access up and down the coast. It also appears to me, and I'm going to make an assumption that the question infers probably more with the state for Medicaid funding, probably more so than everything else. The CCOs are pretty crucial in regards to getting any type of funding and possibly exceptions. So again, my sense is Advanced Health's going to have to partner with us. Also, I think we're going to have to, look at other similar hospitals up and down the coast or in Southern Oregon that have a similar situation. Because if Medicaid funding continues to diminish or it's not sufficient to take care of our patients, we're going to have to advocate of how this is going to impact our community and our patient care. It's a long, I will tell you, it's generally speaking a pretty long haul, but it's going to take a lot of effort and commitment, and make sure everybody's disciplined if we're going to get to the end game, which is how do we get some additional funding to take care of our patients.
Great, thank you. I will add in here that it's my understanding that you are not looking for another 16-year tenure here. You're looking for the help in the short term, and I'd like to speak to that.
Yeah, that's right. What I'm willing to do is I'm willing to come over, on an interim basis. This isn't a long-term situation for me. I don't have a particular time frame, whether it's a few months. So if I can provide some stability, work with the management team, work with you folks, work with the medical staff and the employees, so we can get on the right trajectory, make some adjustments, and then hand that off to a permanent CEO would be my plan.
Can you speak to your experience of being part of a system? As the private board came to believe we needed to affiliate because of our size. We're unique to be a district hospital of our size without greater capital resources. So we were looking to find an affiliation with Quorum or with any other organization. You have not worked at an independent hospital for quite a while. I guess I'm looking for your point of view in terms of the need for affiliation for smaller hospitals, or I love the idea of being independent. I want to survive.
That's a pretty complicated question from a standpoint of what's the best way to answer it. So as you know, when I ran Sierra View and Lindsay, we were private, we were independent. We had a 2-hospital system. I will tell you that it gave us a lot more flexibility, a lot more autonomy to do what we believe was right for our community. I think the systems have some advantages, perhaps maybe of some cost savings in some systems. But I will tell you that what I've seen is that generally speaking, a lot of the systems, one size fits all. And there's less flexibility and less autonomy. But we think there's something that we want to perhaps do different in our particular community. There's a lot more standardization and centralization with these systems. But if you look at the information, many of the large systems are struggling financially. And perhaps that tells us the story. Can they be as successful as an independent hospital? I think the jury's still out on that. At the end of the day, this is still, I personally, this is still about the local board, the local medical staff, the local employees, and the local management team. It's up to us to make sure that we provide the care that we need. Nobody's going to care about our community than these people in here. And the systems they're too far away. And so I think there's a disconnect at times in regards to what the local hospital needs, what the systems are. I can assure you there's no guarantee you're going to get more capital from a system. Been there, experienced that.
I'd like to add that that's a great point of why that at least I wanted you to come today was we do plan on looking for that long-term CEO, as you know, and you're happy with. But what drew me to ask you to be here today was you're semi-local. You're Burnham, Myrtle Point. You're from Roseburg. They're just right over the hill. So it's that's part of what drew me to you, because you're correct. No one is going to care more about this hospital than those sitting in this room right now, and those online. I'll give you credit too. So yeah, that's really the questions that I had prepared for you. I have had a chance to read through your resume. I asked Denise to print some copies if you guys need some. And like I said, it's available online. With that, if I don't have any more questions from the board, Patrice, do you have one? Oh, perfect.
Have you had a chance, or do you know anything about reviewing Quorum Health?
I don't know a lot about that. I mean, just I've read a couple of documents that you guys had online. That's about it. So I was pretty limited.
Anything over here? Okay, with that, I will close the board interview with Kelly and I will open public comment. Is there anyone in the room that would like to make public comment?
Does that include questions for Mr. Kelly? That's,
Depends what the question is.
we don't usually, questions.
Well, why don't we take the public comment as a question and I will do my best to get back to you with that answer.
I have a question then.
Perfect.
Hello? Okay. I was really curious when you said that,
You state your name and.
oh, sorry, Tracy Sweeley, Coos Bay. I was really curious when you stated that this various stakeholders would need to be disciplined as we're moving forward with regards to engaging with the legislature, I think is what that you were talking about. And I was wondering if you would clarify that a little more. I was just curious. Thank you.
I will work and get an answer to that one and I'll
Okay.
figure out how to get it out.
All right.
Are allowed to, it's not actually a question for the board, but if you want to turn this one in.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do that. I'm gonna use whatever powers I have to turn that question to Mr. Morgan here.
What I meant by that is sometimes when we advocate for what we need, sometimes we get a little bit off track and we want to make sure we stay focused on what's our particular ask. Is it a one-time payment? Is it systematic changes to Medicaid? Is it partnering with Advanced Health so they provide us more dollars? Because sometimes we get off track, and that's why I say stay disciplined. So with the messages, we can say it over and over and over. So that way the legislature can be very clear of what we need from them. Does that make sense?
Thank you. There's a lot of you out there. There's got to be another question or another comment. What about online?
Hi, this is Catherine Fisher, Coos Bay. My question was in regards to, Kelly, when you mentioned Common Spirit, it triggered a memory of Common Spirit having a $160 million ransomware attack in 2022. Did that affect your facility? And if so, how did you guys handle that?
Interesting enough, in Roseburg, it did not impact us because we were still on Meditech and it was on the Epic system. So believe it or not, Meditech actually was a positive for us for one time.
Very nice, thank you.
All right. Is there any other public comment? Go ahead. You're going to state your name and you're going to come up to the mic.
I think I can talk loud enough. This
Okay.
is loud enough. My name's Chandler Marcotte. I'm one of the nurse clinical managers here. And I just wanted to make a statement that, like Dr. McAndrew, I think a lot of us are very surprised we're here in such a short amount of time. And I wanted to say that a lot of what Mr. Morgan has said is nothing new to what we were already doing with Brian Moore. We've put in a lot of work on productivity. We've put in a lot of work on volume. So these are not new ideas that we're working with. So I just wanted that to be known for the community, that this is something leadership has been working for a long time.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, with that, we will close the public comment. From here, we will move, I'll entertain a motion. Anyone has any?
Yeah. I move to go forward with the hiring process of Kelly Morgan as interim CEO and direct that the acting executives and HRO draft and negotiate his employment contract, which shall be subject to further board approval and complete all other executive employee hiring prerequisites.
Do we have a second?
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can we have some discussion?
Sure.
This feels like a hijacked board. And you can, I like Kelly. I think he's a talented guy. I think, this, the spirit of the public meeting laws and the issues of transparency that you were speaking of at our first meeting seem to be thrown out the window. So I believe that we need interim leadership. I'm really putting a line in the sand saying, this is not transparency. This is, within 5 days of forcing out the prior CEO, you've trotted out a new interim without any input from your prior board members. So maybe that's where it sticks in the craw.
To get a response to that, number one, with Brian's resignation, I felt, and I feel like the board majority feels, that it's important to have interim leadership immediately. And that's why in my conversations of everyone that I've spoke with, Kelly was the one who had the most knowledge and was available. I couldn't point Kelly out of a lineup before the time I met him a couple of months ago. But I read his resume, I've talked to his references. As far as the transparency, for what it's worth, I don't know how to be more transparent and do it. I've been going through our legal counsel with every single email and every single question along the way to make sure that I'm being perfectly transparent. That's the reason that I chose to host this meeting. It was advised to me that this meeting could be held in an executive session, and I felt that it was extremely important for our community and our staff to be able to be a part of this process, to know who's coming in interim leadership.
Yeah, there's a difference between maybe not being transparent or not feeling right. We understand that this might not feel okay, but I think we're following the rules, and that's why we're going to vote. And I get it. You have a lot of history, and I believe both your hearts are 100% in it.
Folks, after talking to them.
Wow.
You want to repeat what you just said?
No, go ahead.
Well, I'm not going to repeat what you just said.
No.
I feel as Tom does. Can you hear me?
Yes.
That one, I didn't know Mr. Morgan was going to be here. Two, I didn't know we were going to have an interview process. Any interview process that I've been involved with over my history at Bay Area Hospital, we had a standard set of questions that were given to the whole team, and the team had a chance to look at those and see if they wanted to add or subtract any of those questions. We had a little heads up prior to that an interview process was actually going to happen. I don't think it's fair to Mr. Morgan to have his initial interview process with an audience. And two, you said when you met him 2 months ago, well, I had no idea anyone but you knew of him because of your relationship with your previous work experience. I'm sorry, interview position. So I'm feeling a little flustered and upset.
Yeah, I can respect that. What I will say is that the moment that we decided to move forward with this process, I did send out Kelly's resume to the entire board through Denise. I also sent an email to the entire board asking for their input on what questions would be asked. I didn't receive any responses from you. I did receive a response from Dr. McAndrews, which I didn't ask because he went ahead and asked the question himself. So I feel like I'm trying to do what's right by reaching out to you via the channels that I've been given.
For some reason, and I've been in my email the last 3 days looking. I did receive this. I did not get an email from you.
Yeah, and I'm sorry you didn't, but I'm happy to show you that I did send that email, and I did CC the executive team on it as well.
So the only thing that I said that I felt was valuable at our last meeting was we do not have the luxury of our hurt feelings. So in the spirit of what's best for the institution, I will vote to have favor of Kelly. I think we need to do a heck of a lot better in what we believe is transparency, because this feels force-fed.
I'll also support Mr. Morgan due to the fact that I have read his resume. I did look you up online. I have researched CHI and blended them together with dignity. I wanted to say divinity, and I knew that was wrong. But knowing that the biggest you gave to some of those hospitals was during good times for reimbursement and better commercial pay. So understanding that and understanding your volunteering for a short-term turnaround, I will vote yes.
Point of order, we need a second to the motion before we can.
Kyle with the second.
I didn't hear that. Thank you.
All right, so just to repeat, all those in favor say aye? Aye. Passes. Kelly?
Hold board, please. Show a show of hands for all that voted yes. Thank you.
With that, Kelly, you are our interim CEO, subject to the regular hiring guidelines that Gretchen and our HR team will walk you through. With that, the meeting is adjourned. We do have our next regular scheduled meeting is August 12th, although we will have a finance meeting tomorrow. And I believe Denise noticed out another meeting that's just right before that so that we can approve an agreement with Mr. Morgan. Other than that, our emails are available. If anyone wants to email us, I can make sure. I was going to ask that our emails are put on the website so that anyone can reach out to all of us, so that we want to hear from you. Having this many people in the room is what's most important for us, to be able to see where you're coming from. So I thank everyone for coming out, and see you at the next meeting. Thank you.